I've always been a fan of mythology. One of my favorite forms of this is Norse mythology. The idea of Valhalla, a place where you go if you die as a warrior. It just seems awesome. The idea of Yggdrasil, the trees surrounding all the 9 realms. That just seems magical to me. And freaking Jormungandr! It's a giant danger noodle that can surround the planet Earth. How awesome is that? Sorry, gotta be carried away there. There are multiple games out there that explore Norse mythology, and I could talk about any of them. But to celebrate the release of its sequel this November, I want to talk about God of War 2018. If you didn't know, this game is not the first in the God of War series. It all started out way back on the PS2. This got followed up by 2 sequels, one of them still released on the PS2, the other got released on PS3. Instead of Norse mythology, these games all played out in Greece. I've only played the first game of the series, but I've seen enough videos that explain the stories to understand the background of the newest game. One thing I do remember from the first game is the amount of violent gameplay there is. I mean, after booting this game up for the first time, 12-year-old me finally understood why some games were rated M. This game opens up by throwing you on a ship to fight off multiple enemies that end in you fighting a giant hydra whose head you need to freaking impale. After knowing these games open up like that, one can only imagine how the first minutes of this game must go. Oh. It's actually really peaceful. Okay, I'll come back to this later. First it is once again story time. The story is quick and simple. You play as Kratos, who starts out by chopping some wood. Then this kid, who is apparently Kratos' son called Atreus, shows up and walks along with Kratos back to his house. There is a dead body of Kratos' wife, who they are cremating. Now, after a quick hunting trip, some skinny dude shows up at Kratos' house and attacks you for some reason. And now it's suddenly your goal to go to the highest peak in all the 9 realms to spread out the ashes of Kratos' dead wife. Even though the story doesn't sound that special, it's still engaging with all the obstacles that stand in the way of the main characters. It also really helps that even simply walking around feels like a solid cutscene, and during those times, the conversations between the characters really helps you pay attention to what they are saying. It doesn't feel like one of those NPC conversations that sound more artificial than the HAL 9000 computer.
I used to be an adventurer like you. Then I took an arrow in the knee.
No, it feels real. Like actual human beings having an actual human conversation.
Ah, Fafnir. I always wondered what became of him.
Wait, Fafnir? But Sindri said he was a dwarf.
He was. And now he's a dragon. Funny how life works, isn't it?
The times the game decides to throw in a cutscene, it's usually either an action piece that feels like an epic movie fight, or it's a cinematic moment to show you a new area or something. My favorite thing from the story is that it ties the older God of War games together with this one by throwing hints from the past, but at the same time you can play this game without having known the earlier games even existed. This makes this game accessible for all kinds of players, so if this was your main concern for not trying this game in the first place, you got nothing to worry about. We interrupt this video with a quick fun fact. Did you know, in Norse mythology, Loki once took the form of a mare and did the dirty with the stallion Svaldifari. They gave birth to an 8-legged horse called Sleipnir. This later became Odin's steed. Now back to the video. You got an X. That's it. Not really much to it, to be honest. Okay. Let me explain it a bit more. The game gives you this Leviathan Axe that you can use to slash your way through enemies. You can also throw it and resummon it to make the fighting so much more satisfying. You also got your fist as a fighting option for when you don't have an axe at that moment for some reason, or I don't know. And later, the game gives you an extra weapon that is a bit of a spoiler. Other than that, I don't got much to say about the gameplay. I can explain what button does what, but yeah, it's just some basic controls that most people got used to by now. Instead of gameplay, why don't I talk about the presentation for a bit? The game has amazing designs for the world that you get really immersed into. Simply walking around always has this kind of subtle shaky cam that makes it feel like you're walking with the characters, which makes it even more immersive. A really good thing about this is that some environments always get introduced with animations or cutscenes. So if you're already immersed by walking itself, flow of everything makes you feel like you're also in that boat, discovering this giant ancient ruler, or also seeing this turtle home pop up from the ground. I said that this game opens up pretty peaceful, but that is just to introduce the tone and cinematic nature of this game. Trust me when I say the action can get a little harsh. So if you thought the aggression and hate would fade away in this game, then you still got nothing to worry about at all. So, remember in my Elden Ring video how I criticized a lot of Western open world games for feeling linear? Well, this game, yeah, I didn't really realize that this counted as an open world, to be honest. Did that bother me? No, not at all. The game is very story driven, so the exploration and side quests aren't really that important. Sometimes you can find yourself wandering off to a weird place, but after spending a few minutes there, you can just get a good item or something and then move on with your day. I mostly played it like a linear game, which was fine enough. The difficulty doesn't force you to rush to get to the best items and upgrades, but at the same time, the rewards for doing some side quests aren't that bad that are not worth doing it in the first place. I think this game has this nice balance of optional things to do and just following the main story, which just made it perfect for me who just wants to play a game for the story sometimes. And to be fair, yeah, it did have its icons on the map, but it doesn't really force you to get any of it. It's not like Elden Ring to the point where you get rewarded for exploring the different parts, but that's because there's not really anything to explore. The world gets shown to you by just progressing. This video is nearing its end, but how about another fun fact about Norse mythology? When on a fishing trip, Thor cut off the head from the biggest ox the giant Hymir owned. Thor then proceeded to go further into sea, despite Hymir not wanting that at all. After using the ox's head as bait, Thor caught Jormungandr and started to fight him. Fearing Ragnarok would happen, Hymir cut the line so Jormungandr would fall back into the water before Thor had a chance to kill him. Now back to concluding the video. I am so happy this game got released for PC a while back, otherwise I would have never had the chance to give this gem a shot. It has beautiful cinematics and an awesome combat system. What else do you want from a game? It's also amazing to see how they interpret certain parts from Norse mythology and how they translate that into this game. I love the idea of how they made the Bifrost, for example. I didn't feel like doing this after finishing this game, but there is still post-game content that I can finish if I ever want to get back into it. But until that time, I am looking forward for God of War Ragnarok. Wait, it will be PlayStation exclusive again. Fuck! Hey y'all, thanks again for watching this video. Please, if you enjoyed this, consider subscribing and leaving a like. Commenting also really helps. I try to respond to everything I see, which is easy for right now because, you know, there's not a lot of comments. But yeah, if you enjoyed this one, consider also watching the other videos I made. One is about Elden Ring, a very popular game that you might have heard of, and the other is about Tricky Towers, a indie game from a few years ago. Anyways, see you next time. Bye!